Ano jumisi number 2 dang ene DPB 세계 마저 삼롤이야 섬지슈와 당 접지도 ene 드린데 송주의 니마 순배니 모델이야 ene 무튜데 다 가상게 지단게 topic somewhere 주시조디 ene sampa chen ene kalesda misambo cha da leji juji leji tolia shebo yebi industane ta kasangi jiong chadang ti tolia ngarangi mangbochi labsing mindo karezana da jojin ngarai misambochi jase gyata misambochi maybe industane 다지 미신달래야 아니 미상부 제단 라야 돼 깔라 가버시도 다 이내 참참 나랑 응어스다 가르네 제모도 이내야 아이디어로 다지 전화 미상부 제비나 바진들을 제고 요사를 삼사로 근데 아이디어로 안다나시 대다 접지도 상계기 가당 아니 개배기 명아 디즈나로리아 다 미지된다 된바 제당 망부 송여비 인도산에 다 되게 나랑 망부 퇴여비 인도산에 다대 퇴배 되는지 아니 지나서로마 세세 쉬야마도 신다 미생에 텔레 타버를 이렇게 쉬야스게 민도 다 되게 못 되는 거 쉬야이
First of all, I would like to begin by welcoming all of the Rinpoches and all the members of the Sangha and the lay community who have come here. Today is the third day of our teachings, and as we have talked about yesterday and the day before, generally the topic or the subject for this teaching is how to become a good person through having a good heart, having a kind heart. And so this is the subject that we need to speak about. And so in general, I have said a few general comments about this. I haven't really said a whole lot about it, I don't think. And the reason I haven't said so much is because I myself am not 100% a good person. And so when you're not a 100% good person, then it's awfully difficult to tell other people how they should become good people. So sometimes I think that even though I'm not really able to be a good person all the time myself, but I have a few ideas about what being a good person is. You know, I think, oh, if you're going to be a good person, then you should do this or you should act in this way. And then on top of that, I have also had the opportunity to read a lot of the words of the Buddha and a lot of the instructions of the great scholars and masters of the past. And these are instructions that tell how one can make your human life something that is worthwhile and meaningful. And so I feel like I can explain a little bit about what I have read and what I have heard. Other than that, I don't feel that I have much else to say.
That ne de make clear fry somewhere session che go be la nga zui gi gyung uru zerendi yang kama bu ko me gi sung ju che ani nga ja le ne kong gi ju ma bu da che ani个人性不下因，因那他的矿业干了好不重要不着他的，这次嘛到，那矿他说的accident，这里就是那故事了，军中些穷呗，这里就是那矿的像卓越团都疼同样。都是榆林子学的呀，我们这是的，就是都是鼓吹热气气。好像你们的呀，工业北面捐送，但鼓吹热气气学姐，俺他都忙不了，没推起查了哪些都鼓吹热气学出来了，都是，俺这张，我了呀，都现在学。
And there's something also that I would like to clarify. And this is about the translator Ngurup Tsering. And Ngurup Tsering is someone who was a translator for the previous Karmapa. And then when I came to India, he has translated for me many times. He has been very kind and very helpful. But now he is having a bit of a hard time. And the reason is that he was in an accident, and you could say that there has been a slight medical problem. And so, in order that he be able to stay around for a long time to bring benefit to many sentient beings, it's necessary for him to take it easy for a couple days. And so he's given a lot of efforts over the past couple days, but now it's time for him to take it easy so that in the future he will be able to continue his work. And so now he is taking it easy for a couple days, and I would like to thank him very much.
다 가상에 다치 나랑 또 니만이 줄이야 녜마 짱짱谢谢 안 지난 주에 야 가서 들려 가서 다디 reply sorry 가서 응 개매谢谢 都是인도스탄 드린데 안 좋아지는 샤나스 근데 가상 공다 쉬는 시엔 드린데 좋아 가시지 꽤낭샤 드린 주산 당에는 좋아지는 제 엔티젤이야 예마 추진지 마 지시나 아우면도 선트스
Over the past couple days, I have just been speaking to you. I've been talking to you, and there's been no chance for you all to give your responses. And so I think it's good to have some questions and answers today. As we explained yesterday, there have been some questions that have been brought forward. And so I think that the first thing that we should do is have the question and answer, and then following that, I will continue my speaking.
Maybe you can read the question.
So the first question is, how do we practice equanimity when it looks like everyone tells lies and makes life difficult for those of us who are good?
매쪽이 tu jun du zun tang zun mang bu she ne nang ju me chen nang gang mang bu tre du ti nang do de ne nyam ba ni nyam ne kan de so
This means to what? To economy?
Economy, 당용 공식 공부를.
다 될이야. 아니 나대 가사도 이 가사. 뒤에 다대 소소로에 가수에 누버시 좀 되네. 근데 동네시아를 막 자유 면로. 다 될이야. 변하지 주주 나는 가디 주스越南 텔레미가 체지 가디 주스越南 텔레미가 차지 말베 매는 텔레미가 체지 살아서 드리지와 드리지 소스 그 컨트롤 제 디나로리아지 가서다 체인지로 제토야 체인지 제토야로 줘비나 안다 지게 고르셔 비게 지 덴발레야베 뭐 덴바딘도이베 바 데셔르게 세셔르 차요르바 안데리 제토야 맵진비나 안다 지세나다 아주지 냠레신 베나 로종이 냠레 세토부 징게르 진비나 안다 강글로지 갱행 청주랑도 교수만나시 지 갱행디 엔과지 가수에 지 디버 종아당 민중계하고 되게 다 개인으로 진행삼으로 되게 개인의 저주의 교례배 원시으로 제시 다들 조단으로 지용 걸 봐. 다들로 이제 지중 시야래. 또 당아 미세 그 샤스킴도 돼.
This is a question that we all have to look at the power of our own capabilities, our own mental capabilities, how great or small our capabilities are. It's as it is said in The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shanti Deva. If the situation is something that you can fix, then there's no reason to get upset about it. If the situation is something that you cannot fix, then there's no reason to get upset about it either. And so you have to look at, see how much control you have in the situation. How much can you change the situation? And if you can change the situation, then maybe you can explain it, you can give them some advice. If there's some way you can help the other and help them see the true situation and explain it, then you can do that. But if there's no way you can help or no way that you can explain it, then maybe there's not much you can do. You just have to practice with it. If you're someone who has a lot of practice, who has really had the real practice of mind training, the authentic practice of mind training, then you can follow the practice of transforming obstacles into the path of enlightenment. So this is a way to purify our misdeeds and to purify and remove our misdeeds and so forth. And so this is a way for us to, an opportunity for us to transform difficult conditions and obstacles into the path of Bodhi. But really, it depends upon our capabilities, how much capabilities we have with our mind. Other than that, I'm not sure I have much to say about it.
much to say, I didn't do that. I just taught like this. 가르사나 아주 답은 지경에는 부충배 카톨리아. 아래 지 가서야. 퉁게 용아 게게 마와. 이제 카톨리아 지센 앞세 찬다로. 야는 지센 이제 마 가서야. 냥행기 녀바 근데 내가 우리야 다 치 튕게 상부지 고 녀모도 의미냐 저 소소리야 저 변이지 sem gave virtuous thought somewhere 다 근데 이제 삼바 상부 안다나시 gave 삼바 다 timbu리 용세버 다 이제 소소 덴바를 지미나 덴바 소소를 예비나 이제 소소 덴바 예버 대랑 저 상부 예버 디토네 대코랑랑 토네 지 로데브로 차데 로데브 채고야데 개점으로서 저 소소 삼바 삼바 예마다 저 덴바데도 이마 다 디차네 다 지당 고라 가서에 로데브 차 차긴 신다게 매비네요 다른 밀신다는 드시 겸네 겨바 고급 매바 이제 드시 갸스 매바 나 진짜 내고리야 셴 자스게요 만에 랑그랑 이제 심수 당하러 진지래 다 랑그랑 심수 던두사네 나랑 뭐지 가르쳐야지 sometimes just 펜슈에로도 간도사네 수수지 대바임 지 대밤 야나지 수수리야 타나 랑게 심규리아 계획 삼반나지 모두 매비네요 다들 나지 예바티 개발 상부인 상바로 지다 띵원서 첨부인 타나야 지점시 탑도 보이네요 다 늦지 계획 상부 나지 유예 상부 다 뒤에는 저 로데버 자다 셈 기부르 차기 탑시 자대 개선으로서 아주 그 뒤에는 지그 치료를야 지금 다 한다 로데버 치료하려 탑시디 치료는 제대로 오고 대지 뭐지 낭 탑시디 로데 구양으로 지 낭니 제 거야데 개선으로서 로데보다 구양이죠
But I have had some thoughts about things. I've thought about this when you're in a situation where you have very few favorable circumstances and there are a lot of difficulties and problems. Often what happens is that our minds get really upset. We get very upset about things. And it feels like all our difficulties, our problems are really pressing us down. And so sometimes, there's nothing on the outside that can help us. But even though there's nothing on the outside, then at least inside of ourselves we can think that at least I've got some virtuous thought in my mind. At least I've got a bit of a kind heart. At least there's some small virtuous thought that I might have. And so if you think about that, and you think if you are with the truth, and if you think about the truth that you have, and you think about having this good mind, then just on the basis of that can bring comfort to the mind. That can bring some degree of happiness to the mind. And this is very important. So when you have that good heart, and when you have the truth, then no matter what happens on the outside, there may not be the external conditions to do anything, and there's nothing you can do it on the outside, but at the very least you know that you can do things to comfort your own mind. And so sometimes when it happens, I think that, I've got the truth, and I think about the virtue that I have in the mind. I think about the only thing that I have is there some degree of virtue in my mind. And thinking that, I feel like that's a really great fortune. And so when we think about that, and even if there is just the tiniest virtuous thought in our minds, this is something that we can use to bring ourselves comfort in our minds. This is like the best method to bring comfort in our minds. Often it feels like we need to find something outside of ourselves, some other method or thing to bring us comfort from the outside. But if there's some way that we can just let our minds be more expansive, let them be more open and relaxed, this is what we need to do. We need to find comfort inside in the sense of being expansive and open. The next question is traditionally Buddhism teaches the equal nature of all phenomena, and this includes the equality of men and women. However, in Buddhist cultures, women, including nuns, are considered inferior. Would His Holiness please comment?
Chidang nangbe ki choki shungi nangdo, chotamche nyamba nidu sombatang. De nangne, tene pomon danyam yang degi nangdo choki yosiris. Yina yang nangbe ki luksuyo ki nangla, pime dang, tene zuma, ani chola, tokzum memba, rabu tseya ki luksundo, deko la gongcha karinas.
Tadi kesdi Chidang namba sangye gongba sanakado sangye ta sangye le gongba le yobe dedang an dadeji namba sangye be chizo ga nani ya yode be nedang di chamsam mithyumba dang kyawa mangu yondi yare 라바도 남바상계베 최대 지소당 쿠류 민저베 나노리아 타집 중부 인두산에 양디 쿠류 디나리아 예베 나주들이야 지소 대단 디지 가르 리숑당 어느 수 트레디셔널 되게 슈게인이야 태엽 인두산에 디균센 때네 아니 이제 사우 카시엘라 야지 포모자냐 메비 니주디네 먹고 용데 야래 나 니주 중부디 상계 공배 나로리아 다 이제 공발이야 아니 이제 포모자냐 가서에 매버로 다 진짜지 저지 선바세 도 말아서 다 간다랑 다 포모자냐 Pero ngararu sini umai ngara dinsingi umaji 가수에 포먼 다니면 써야 되냐. 지 디산지 톱당 지스거로 배는 드라미 톱당 human rights. 다디 벽에 돌아야 아니 포먼 다니면 써야 돼. 지 포먼 톱 벽에 돌아야 women rights somewhere. 그래 나왔다. 다 톱당 써야 기지 시행으로 봐. 엔딜레 미망고질이야 섬수 망고 용유했을 때 고알렌저로 고알렌당 망고 용유했어. 아주 뒤견지 배배 나눠야 아주 톱단스도 싸네. 지 톱쇼 지 톱단스도 싸네. 바지 배는 미장으로 질이야 규지여 봐. 미장 충분질이야. 지 아바들이야 규지여 비나. 다디 아바디 규디다 곱샤게 인도 싸네. 배는 부니여 비나 부니리야 아니 소소소리야 곱샤게도 싸네. 아니 균온딩 알아 토고요. 니콜라 토고요 사르지. 톱쇼 그 삼로이서 톱단스에 있는 데지 가서에 지 톱쇼를 줘야 되면서 근데 지기 고알렌 단지 용디 있어. 이내야 녜다 나랑기 냠용서 말해. 근데 점링이 돌아야 예대베지 분명히 녜당당 이제 좀 녜당 냠가 왕고시다요 아래. 다들 주들이 시에 과스 개면도 다 간다라야 아니 지당 로아 미성으로야 디기 쩨렌샤 토단야래 동엔 돌렌샤 동엔 돌아 토단 상으로야래 다나시 부메라야 되는시 에너지 그래 디기 가서 토베아당 안 동해 방야 토당 그걸로야 요아래 인주스탄에 다 진짜지 다디 미상으로요 외법서 가르쳐 없다 다디 지 상으로야 디 톱당스네 딱 한다 미상으로 디 가르쳐에 외법서 부산에 인지게 가르쳐 없다 런시 외법 봐 다디 상으로야 영어데 요아래 다 이미 내가 아주 삼삼 안 디제지 외법으로 들려야自통하에 맞으시지 그런지 저 분명히 소리야지 고주기 얘는 디기량 아주 지구로 맞으시 디기를 맞지 캐셔야다 에너지 동해가 나왔다 라인이 아주 제세면 다 디내가 나와 보셔야 영어가 다디 되게 벌도 아주 도나치고 와야 돼 좀 샤래도 마도 분명히 톱단수에서 두산에 아주지 포다 뭐니 에네베 균어를 지금 된다래야 아주 딩알 거에 디큐엘 딩알이야 가서 거에 디큐엘 제기 민사로 드레지기 가서 균어가 된다래야 지 탑주셔야 될 소리만 이 단디 지 덴베 된다래야 탑주셔야 돼 조디 간다 로미 상월로야 참에 아니 대화 된대요 동해 된대요 지고를 쉐 아니 분명히 대다 대신이래 라바도 아니 분명히지 디도고 소화돼 바지 폴레 노예 바당 아니 디스가 디테일을 차요 인주산에 디지기 아주 이내야 대점식이 거들이 리스펙트 제거하당 아주 들이야 돈안 제거해야 돼다 계속 시라래도 다디 디산 잡으리 돌려야 지당다 디기 가르쳐 진짜 아주 진짜 매배 니주 망고 좀 어디 가래 디 균선 된다 아주 삼당 거네 개좀 시라래 상계 좀 된 얘기 다 디버 지중 참여 나오려야 로아 심장 함제 에네 간다 미조르 미점도 많습니다 너나 심여도 저 심장 함제 대화된도요 그 동해 전도요 그 지거래 상로량 아주 꾸용기 아니 지구를 제거하지다 잠지 광고야 되게 전부를 수하네 안 하바라도 배는 상계에다 년도기 되는 기준 나눠야 하는가 보면 기준에 다점에 공부하여 송도와 안 티버 준비 나눠야 한지 티버 준비 나눠야 돼 대외 관계인지 심지어 담제 나가도지 마더뷰 아니 제심 장과의 개점을 수행하다 상하라인 대외 관계 아니 주산에 딱 하나 균세망고 쉬죠아래 균세망고 하다 균세 집이 미변 딱 하나 오해 니주 점불링 거 돌려야 부메되게들 강에 간주 책이 여가 되게 아주 시에베 체제 아니 소소용에네 아섬남다가 토네 아니 미링원의 체제 아니 다 telea 지금 덴베 경교로 제거해야 돼. 개침을 해도 쓰고요. 대만 당 이제 시작했습니다. Maybe too long. Sometime.
Generally, when we think about the teachings of the Buddha, and then when we think about the situations in Buddhist countries and Buddhist societies and Buddhist environments, sometimes the way the Buddhist teachings and the way the Buddhist societies are, there are sometimes things that don't fit, or there are things that seem contradictory. And so basically, when we have Buddhism, the Dharma is in many different societies. It appears in many different environments. And in some of the different environments, the Dharma, there are sometimes various areas or situations where things don't work out. The culture and the society, the tradition influences it. And so in some different countries and places, there are some situations that arise in terms of the equality of men and women. But it's something that you can't say that there is no equality for men and women in Buddhist countries. You cannot say that either. But generally, when we think about the equality of men and women, before we think about it, it's like we think that there's, with the equality of men and women, we think about rights. There's a lot of talk these days about human rights, women's rights, and so forth. And when we talk about rights in Tibetan, the word we use for rights in Tibetan is the word, it's related to the word for dealing with inheritances. For example, if you have a family and the head of the household passes away, then you have to divide the wealth, and it's like saying, okay, I'm going to get this bit and you're going to get that bit. It's like dividing up the inheritance among various people. So it's like this. It's like that. It's related to that word. When we say the Tibetan word for human rights, it's like figuring out who gets which part of the inheritance. But when I think about it, actually, when we look at the situation in the world, there are many different situations that women face, many difficulties that women face, and there's no need to explain them all now. But generally, when we think about it, all humans have the right, all human beings have the right to try to find happiness. They all have the right to try to rid themselves of suffering. And so it's the same with women. Women also have this right to try to bring themselves happiness, and they have the right to be able to try to rid themselves of the suffering. So they all have that right. This is like a natural right. It's an inherent, it's a natural right that all creatures have. But sometimes what happens is that we don't think about these natural rights. We don't think about the natural rights that people have. We don't remember that women have the right to try to bring themselves happiness. We don't think about that. We don't respect that right that they have to bring themselves happiness, and we ignore it. And so, in this way, we need to give this right. It's a natural right. It's not as if it's an inheritance that we need to divide up. It's not like, okay, I need this and you can't have it. That's not the sort of situation that it is. Rather, in terms of the true nature of how it is, all human beings are the same in wanting to be happy and wanting to free themselves of suffering. So all women are also the same. They also want to be happy. They also want to be free of suffering. And that is what we need to respect. And it is important for us to take that into account. And so there are many sentient beings in the world, and they all have this natural right. And so it's important for us to realize this is the situation as it is, and we need to try to respect this natural right. Now, in terms of Buddhism, in the teachings of Buddhism, it's primarily about humans, but actually it's for all sentient beings. It's saying that all beings who have minds are the same in wanting to bring themselves happiness, and they're the same in wanting to free themselves of suffering. And so it's important that we respect this equality, this fact that we are all equal in this same way. And so, for example, in the Buddhist tradition, we talk about the teachings of the Shravakas, the initial disciples of the Buddha. There are many stories of women who have become arhats. In the Mahayana, not only that, we also talk about remembering how all sentient beings are like mothers to us. And we have even more respect for women in the secret mantra Vajrayana. And so in this way, it is important for us to know this. For these many reasons, it's important for this to know this and remember that the equality of women and so it is important for us to try to support women in being equal. The next question is, how should we as Buddhists take care of animals that are ill or dying? If there is no prospect that they will recover from their illness and are suffering, is it better to put them to sleep so that they are no longer in pain?
jundu negi nardengi ta pachirshia ta chungi tendegi jundu tenzo langanzugi kandes jamjong tang ropa kande chigo winas tenimikse ta jundu tenzo tang nele chu taraya meba ta chu chaga jeso tene 다른 동안 첨부 유나 되게 동안 인조부 탈외기 제도 되네 갑장네 탈바 동안에 탈외 탑 남성 탈외기 탑 되는 제는 되그면서
바디 아주 뒤에나로 되게 지지비 뒤에나로야 네 내기 나르베스 가사지 네 가수에 네 신도 가수에 나네 가수에 살라메바이나 안다디고 가수에 봐 보세네 내가 보세잖아 가사를 선서로 근데 모르다 렌즈에 세잖아 예바에 메기 쉐드서 봐 예바에 버치 하고 저와디 다 좋아 상부 근데 수스미 얼마다 다 좋아다 수스미 예비 인주산에 근데 수스미데 내가 메기와 인주산다 다디 메기와 뒤에나로 나와 요마로 다 뉴지멘로서 다 맞지 디 삼당과에서 내 당기 당부 좋아들래 인주산 안 고소를 내 질라비 계시 당연히 더 치대 심미디 소라당 아주 된지 채널 주고 제 채널 내라고 인도스다 조진의 taking care 인도노제 다 조진도 기대 심미디 주고 고주게 계시에 도마로 받아 고주기 choice 제어 당 아주 choice 제어 뭐 고지 시대 선사 다들 뭐 이제 배나 뺑이야 가슬라에 배나 가르시나 아니 맞지 나서나 아니 이제 가르사디 내일 교토면 나서는 저랑 슬립 제시가 임베스 아다디 디서로 아주 좋아지는데 이퀄 가사디 이퀄리티 있으면 인스거래 아 저제 기대심이서 슬립 제시가 지키게 주시에 아니 미디스야 되라는 좀 많이 소리 내일 산다 네 사면 없다네 오요스 간다야 베네지 동해 첨부 연한지 서자 메르지 봐 스수 첨부 연한 서자 메데 어딘지 미지다 슬립 제샤에서 시나 마셔도 세시 오르바다 근데 루스타 근데랑 같이 먹어줘 근데 누구랑 같이 먹어줘 안다지 서자 메르지 근데 지금 맞지 나바상게 베나노리아 데 거지 갈아 감시라래 땅 오늘 양 청주스는 봐 현대 버식만 도지 섬기면게 다 되는 재미는 꼭 거바 침못 통나 거바 쉬부지 여비나 양데 미세들에게 양데 안 청주스는 봐 지 현대 버식 삼바지 묘모 받아 만져서 삼바 다 되게 갈아 감시라래디 가셔디 차겐 된 사람이 다 이미 general speak 지용 차는 셰비는 다디 미셔버주제 가래서 미 스스미 제 미기 우리랑 직세 오면로 인도스탄에 다디 아부이기 말해요.
There is discussion of this in the Vinaya. There is a part where in the Vinaya where it discusses an individual who has become very sick, extremely ill and very sick, and there's no hope of him getting better. And in this situation, there's the thought, oh, maybe it's better to kill them. Maybe it's better to kill them to free them from that suffering. And if that is the case, is it still wrong to kill them? And the answer is that it is still wrong to kill them. And the reason it is still wrong is that there is the intent to kill. And because there's the intent to kill, it is unvirtuous. And so, since it is an unvirtuous action, it is not allowed in the Vinaya. But it's something we need to think about it. When it's our dogs and our cats, we think that it's a different situation, and we think that so we have our dogs and our cats, and they get very strong, and we think that we're going to put them to sleep. But whose choice is that? It's our choice that we're making. It's not their choice that they're making. So what is it like with humans? Like if I were to get sick, and there are absolutely no choice or no chance for me to get better from that illness, what are you going to do with me? Are you going to put me to sleep then too? And so we have to actually treat all beings equally. And so why is it that we're going to put the dogs and the cats to sleep? It's just the same as it is with humans. And so we really need to think through this very carefully. If the animal is feeling a lot of pain, then you can give the animal pain medication. It's not like it's not necessary to kill them. And when we say that we're putting them to sleep, what are we doing? It's just another word for saying that we're killing them. And so that's not something that we can do. If there's no way for them, if they're feeling a lot of pain, we can give them some pain medication. Otherwise, in terms of Buddhism, it is very difficult. However, if you are a bodhisattva, a great bodhisattva who only thinks of the benefit of other sentient beings, and you see and you see a good purpose or a good need in this situation, then there is an exception there. But this is in the case only of great bodhisattvas who only think of the benefit of others. People who are acting when their minds are not at all mixed with the afflictions. But that is a very difficult circumstance for there to be. So in general, it is not allowed. It is not allowed because there is the intent to kill, and this is an unvirtuous motivation. The next question is, if we give some rupees to a beggar and he uses them to buy alcohol and has an accident and dies, are we involved in the negative karma of this even if we had a good intention?
Long kansa chila ngarang music te tene khogi ngu tegi changmang bo tone kasi shiwe ki kin cha so na tene ngarang ki kono sambe tone ngu te na yang tene kwan shiwe ki kin cha on du tele ya leng ba mi ge le cha yu na kan de na
다들 신도 고 교르시면서 다들 미교와 처음에서 다 이민에 아주 미교와 주사 미교 주인한 그 미교와데 어제 저 안에서 미교와 주인한 그 미교와데 체도 녀르와르치 고거바다 체도 변에 소제비네야 체도 녀네 지수성 고거바 수세 매버 소제비나 바지 미교와 주인한 게 다 미교와도 칸에 차로이나 칸이나 체도 녀네 미교 주인아 다 지당 그다 미교와 이는 미교와 주인 거 뭐도 왔다 지 미교 왕국 얘기로 이 비슷하다 개미기 남자 참으시다래 다 이민의 지당기 현시외 현치외 견차바 점식이 어디 디고를 시야주는 깔아가면 좀 다 이내양 아주这边的张不了基本等就是啥呢다 디고 이민을 맞대 안다 아주 지张不了这样的或者펜스 군들랑这个啊的펜스 군들랑这样原因就是偏过啊的嘛偏呢아주 지 펜스 군들랑么的지团大嘛兄弟的你就是啥呢다对于这张不的说了我是来嘛的些社区同居的这样这里这个多边的就多少人都把我这球面是就兄弟听着这些我这样叫那就卡拉的都是这样这吃多那你这预计那个不了大呢那看我呢这看了偏套不去偏多钱两个牛可能都但这大型见的嘛就切换这样
When we talk about, non-virtues or unvirtuous actions and so forth, when someone is caused to die, it's not necessarily going to be one of the 10 unvirtuous actions that we have. It wouldn't certainly be one of those. Because with one of the 10 unvirtuous actions, for example, with the unvirtuous action of killing, then you have to have the particular intent to do it. So if you kill someone with the particular intent to kill, then that becomes one of the 10 unvirtuous actions. Otherwise, it's not necessarily one of these 10 unvirtuous actions. Actually, there are many different types of unvirtuous actions that are not necessarily even included within the 10. But there are a lot of presentations of the different types of virtue and unvirtue. However, when you do something that becomes a circumstance that contributes to someone else's death, it's difficult to say that it is necessarily a wrong or a misdeed. For example, when you give a beggar some money, then it's a difficult thing to say, is that a misdeed or is it not? You're motivated by the wish to help. But if that help doesn't end up being helpful, then you should try to give in ways that are actually beneficial to the person. Otherwise, your wish to help really doesn't bring much benefit. And so maybe it's better not to give money to beggars, but instead to give food or other necessities and so forth. For instance, in Bodh Gaya, they have made a rule, or the government has made a rule, that you should not give beggars money, but instead should give them food and so forth. And so basically you need to look at the situation and the time and the situation and see what is the most beneficial thing to do, what is the least dangerous thing to do, and examine this carefully.
The last question.
The last question is, I am a teacher in a school with 1,000 students. Every day the students have problems and need my help. If I set a limit on how much time I spend with them so I can practice, then some children will not get the help they need. Please advise me on how I can find a balance.
Kala roba godos tenes roba mambo chegoya tene yongdos tene te tamche ke manene Then Narangi Nyamnangi Chet to Zukashi Yana. Then Loptum Gashela, Narang Ropachiati, Chendros. This one to Tikola condition, Umelam, condition Dogoina, Kalusna.
다 쇼핑 하고 라인로.
Maybe you should get up. Maybe you should get up early.
제시나 그런 로봇이야 그런 오늘 전당 아주 되게 formal practice도 사용하고 두주를 써야지 디나로 제거하지 땅 아주 룩스를 지어래 세마도 미신다 로봇 제베 네고리아 그런 다른지 수수 practice 지금 냠네 장원에 지다고 냠네 제스를 산다 지단다 다 formal practice 다 주소도 주소를 소스지고 냠네 차 주소셔네 아부래데 임비네 냠네기 오늘 트네지 냠네 체네 지 쮸발랑네야 다야기 네고부터 가르쳐 산다 미신달이야 가르쳐 제가 제베 네고부터 뒤차디 있으래 미신달 제가 제베 네고리아 다 소수에기 삼로 주인 투바를 지당 아니 그놈다 군주에 됐어 안 다다를 대투야를 충분히 미나 아니 원에 소수 practice 해야지 가서지 야게 좋아할래야 펜더슈지 어디 요인스래 시에마도 아주 소수 지 최간나로야 검제베 내걸이야 안 초아 지 최저 초나야 야부에 붙여 다 임비네 아니 수수 내가 제비 내가 다나신 미신달로 로봇 제비 걸이야 엔 최저 초나 등기 최저 초나 좀 해참 엔 주수수지 뇽몽바당 안다나지 이 마대와다 셈 추바 진짜가 왕 심비이나 안 등기지 최강한 게 셈기부디 시라 팬도메에서 제가 봐 드린 주산에 나중에 바로도 네 소소지 다 튠섬 사데 야와데 시라 매버지 아직 아주 드리지기 try to somebody 튠섬 다 튠도 지야되다 튠섬 자와쳐야 되니야 지당 고란다 튠섬 지야 맞아야 마도 된기 차려야 애니 개버매봐 예매도 지금 냠솔렌 투야로지 제가 다 개좀시다 있어 간다래야 아주지 상계 살아야지 냠제 예매 봐서야지 시고로 땅 아주지 ultimate result 냠제 예매지야 로고 된 로고 주산에 뭐 다다네지 try to somewhere 쳐다셔는 로고를 마도 니마지 다 쳐다자는 맞지 니마지리야 똑똑할래야 냠제 예매사지 용마로 되는 주산에 냠제 예매 요한을 다다는 아주지 튠섬기 디 개발 시라미야 차지 아주 튠을 대해서도 산에 선배기 부르지 튠섬 야 자와 제베 내가야 선바 초딩이야 되게 뭐 미치지 튠기 내가기 딱 한다지 최저 나와당 바자되게 되지 튠섬나 캡토로지 내가 안에 계속 있어
When you are doing things to help others, then this is a time to practice. This is actually the time that you need to be actually practicing. So at times when we are with other people and trying to help others, then this is a good time to see about helping our practice, what we can do with our practice. And so when we say practice, if we have this feeling about practice, that it's something where we need to set some sort of a time for the practice and sit down and do that, that's one thing. But actually our practice is something that we really need to put into practice in our actual conduct of our life. And so, at times when we are making connections with other people and other sentient beings, then that's the time when we need to look at our own individual minds, and we need to try to bring our own minds up and have a good motivation and have a good heart and a good thought. And if we can do that at that time, then this is something that will have a great benefit for our practice. This is what will really increase and make our cause to practice, make our practice good. Otherwise, if we were to just go into our own shrine room and sit down and do the meditation, and while we're sitting down and doing the meditation, we have this feeling that, oh, our practice is really good, it feels wonderful. But then when we actually go to work and we're doing things to actually help other people, at that point, if we're no longer feeling that, but instead we feel like we're overcome by the afflictions, or our minds get disturbed, or we feel uncomfortable in our minds, then this is like all of the feelings, the happiness, the content that we felt in our shrine room is not helping us in any way. And so what we need to try to do is we need to try to make it so that our meditation and our post-meditation are not separated from each other in any way. So we need to try to make it so that what we do in the meditation carries over into our post-meditation, so that in actuality there is no difference between our meditation and our post-meditation. Our meditation and our post-meditation should be inseparable, and this is what is most important. Generally, when we think about it, a Buddha is someone for whom the equipoise and the post-meditation are completely indivisible. There is no distinction at them at all. And but for all of us right now, if we don't try to do it now, if we don't practice trying to mix the two and bring the two together now, then there's no hope that someday all of a sudden it's going to happen, and all of a sudden our post-meditation and meditation are going to be inseparable. So we need to try to do it now. And so in the mind. So if during our sessions we have a comfortable mind and we feel pleasant and happy, and then in the post-meditation, between our meditation sessions, our minds are disturbed, then that's not what we need. And so what we need to do is we need to sort of instill imprints or create imprints within ourselves during the time of our sessions, and then we need to try to bring those so that they fill our lives in the post-meditation as well. And this is very important.
다도나 아주 미세 된된 미상부 다 미상부 안에지 가서에 디기데 되말이지 컨디션으로서 다 대셔줄 산에 내랑 아주야 디기 사디 무지를 시고 봐. 디기 수상 오늘 전에다 디기 수도 컨디션을 된다말이야. 미망고지기 드니스도스나 미망고지야 디기리아 베르지고 소나로 이제 가르 디기 수도 가셔야지 아주리아 디테어를 가서 expect 소문을 받다지 expect는 벽에 가로 다 저와 먹으시나요? 근데 다지 모터 서비스 뇌비나 지 디기 서비스 타고를 섬섬 캄바 서비스 개비나 아니 기부 용어를 섬섬 아니 지 주간나로야 아니 지 추사불려 지 지나로야 녀되나 아니 르르 차체 아니 르리아 심벌로지요 르리아 심베 대화 용어를 섬섬 다들 용어로 봐 다이는 오늘 니술이야 되게 자기는 좀 있네야 되게다 너무 좀 티좀제 되지 중요해 보이는데 바지 강바여버리 때는 디기 대양배 뭐부 디기 여버 텔 때네 엔 디기 중화를 했으나 대야가라 하고샤래 드니도 산다 너랑 아주지 디기 사는 오연이 줄이야 다 대신 끼버서야 돼 정신 디기 대신 끼버서야 돼 정신 그렇지 미지 아주 인생 과야 돼 계속 미스래 우리 세버스 과
If we're going to have a meaningful human life, if we're going to be a good person and we're going to be happy, if we're going to be a happy person, how is it that we can do this? And so when we say, how can we be a happy person? The first thing we need to figure out is we need to identify what happiness really is. What actually is happiness ultimately? And so generally, when we say happiness, a lot of people have a lot of expectations. They have hopes and expectations. They think to themselves, okay, if I get myself a new car, then I'm going to be happy. Or maybe they think, okay, I'll get myself a new house and then I'm going to be happy. Or you might think that you're going to go into the bathroom and fill the bathtub with hot water and sit in that and just relax in a while, and that's going to make you happy. But if we have to wait for these circumstances to come together, and if this is going to bring us happiness, actually that's a question where there's a lot of doubt whether it's going to really bring us happiness. If we expect that a house is going to bring us happiness, then how is it that this happens? Is our happiness something that is dependent upon some sort of a thing? That's difficult. And so when we say happiness, then we need to understand just the nature of what it is. We need to really identify clearly what it is that happiness is.
드니 두상 에버도 아주 다 상로리아 아주 근제체네 지 아주 뜻지 디기 지 차게 망고지여 봐 지 가서 지 치기 아니 변적 롱제 쿠구 좀보지 매비네야 아저 랑킹 랑기 디기 에 표준 사와요 아지 탑시지 외담에 this samutang kwadi catch me libres.
And so if we have the idea that our happiness is something that depends upon external things, then it can be what is it like when we lack all of the external circumstances that bring this? If we think that our happiness comes from external things and then we don't have them, then we have this strong feeling that we don't have any happiness. And so we need to know what all the circumstances. What is it that we need so that even in times when we don't have a feeling of prosperity or wealth or happiness or having everything that we need, what is it that we can do to bring ourselves happiness? Do we have a method that we can use to bring our own selves happiness? And so it is important for us to think about that.
베랑 아주지 변조 사긴 신부예배 미변지 미 규모지기 통수리야 더 미추부 다 가서 의원계 미추부 강부지부연계 모르지부연계 양 가시를 프라이빗 넘주연계 다들 기부 쉬우지 또 나라인에 지금 이제 차로시나 강타서서 근데 이제 가서 돈나를 중으로 다 이미네 지잖아 다들 추부디 저기 통나나 버지양 어당아 di number di Jackson Bushitos Morda than this Hamba Jackson. Tanya Jangarang on it in Jibu Mikuma Zuna Shin and a go Jibu is that is so holiday driver, holiday summer, constantly and driver Chunas or so. That nigger tonight over. They the time when they do that suit Jibu dick, why are they? Chubuchane Carswede. Jibu the contest the younger. And the range is an that is young. Today, sometimes, Jibu said they could then dare to make the vessels. Jews are the made the vessels. And the range is an not the young don't share, but the don't the Mamsha younger to share. To do Zorajim, don't share the Shaman Haja.
For example, when you have like an ordinary person who sees, rich people. So, so when a normal person sees rich people, you see people who have like a lot of money, they're really rich, they're wealthy, they've got all these cars, they've got all these houses, they have their own private jet. It looks like, a normal person looks at it and say, man, they've got it made. Oh, that's so wonderful. If only I were like that myself. And so it's like they have this real wish that they could become rich themselves in the same way. But maybe there's that rich person, and that rich person is thinking, oh, this private jet, it's such a big problem. It's such a headache. And all these cars and all these houses, too many things to take care of, too many problems. I just wish that I could get rid of it all and just go live like an ordinary person sometime. Just take a holiday and, vacation from it all and go live like an ordinary person. So actually, what is it? What is the happiness? And what is it that brings happiness? How is it that being rich and so forth can bring us happiness? So when we really look at it in this way, we can't really say, it's not definite what happiness is. There's nothing really that we can point a finger at and say, oh, this is the happiness. And so maybe now I'll tell another story. I mean, I've told a lot of stories, but otherwise I won't use up all the time. So I better tell another one.
Me mambe samle nanale ngudi digi imbe chonaya anes. Ngui manzi chon digi mangbo tabe chona. Ngui nyunyu ina digi kombo imbe chona. Ini ju sang aju pyoge le ya ngui le ya ming chi da kunga tunjus. Ngui ge ming la. Ngui le ming ya bus da kun gawa. Ni tam si ge ge res. De ye ba ina tenda sang ju ju res. 얘네도 군거 tunjus. 당원에 전에 우이디 오늘 군거 tunju 레베스다. 군가와 전주바데. 다들 investigation 하고 가서. 심주지잖아. 그래야 엄마네. 너무지래야 미상 추부지 알았어. 추부지. 아니 코란데 미상 코란게 틸이야. 장보지 알았어. 장보디 코란 대사에서 말해. 장보가 와서 되는다. 그거 되게 하고 맞어. 간다디 그 코란 캄베치도 왔지 되게 없다. 그 장보디 고다다와 그러지. 그 셰던 그랬어. 셰. 셰던 사람 아니 초보디 권다 따와르지 공유지고 알았어. 이님들이야. 용법 가르쳐 못 공유지 지. 배지 다야 선인우 근데 싸워요. 진짜 드림베나 용법 가르쳐 정도. 아니 선인우 사다 가르쳐다 too much worry. so 말다 지고 심대시다요 알았어. 심대시다요 유스단에 아니 지 셰던 유샤네 셰 땅아지다 정겨워 말았어. 나 이내고 공유지들 유스단에 그 뒤에 고랑기 캄베치를 여된 게 장보디 셰당한테 요 거주상 장보디 좀더 가라서 나한테 응유들 가르쳐해 나한테 벤조 여된 응유 여된 게 지네 아직 시에다한테 정금인데 소지 김도가 님아 다바시 서규 통주면에 서규 통주 권보이네 타는 지 의도 바샤는 지 서규 통주 그래서 권보이네 그 시에다를 정도 근데 거 기부 쉽죠 내 컨트롤 진데 가랭이 하마오지 김제로 돼 님은 지 그렇지 김제지 하고 도 삼체 님은这里有个 ser 때문에 안 조심 못해 ser 도도지 아니 장부디 그런 데서 샤샤 대 샤샤도 산에 아니 디 건다고 장부디 디님에 건래고 또롱같이 건다 출로 그 ser 통으로 ser 통도 산에 오 다디 ser 컨디션에 그 카베나 루브르도 ser 레버와 다디 컨디션 레비나스 코페 삼몽 지전에 미지기 아니 데 류수인게레스 네 두사나 파지 파테 수 류수이나 데 미디 하코나 그 파테 와서 야 지잖아 군조기 나 장보유인 바 켄세 아니 그 세르기 무줍 나용게레스 데데 두사다 데 세르디 배주 야보 단제다 수선이에 에너지 냐레 세르디 파종 유일레 데네 가제 dāne pēnā jī, nāma jī, lēn, kāmbā jī, gyā, dā jī Kurāṋ jī sāma yorwa, dā māngbō sāma dāng jī, tēne tī guāndā kō, xē dāng jē sō. Chūpū kō, dā kī gōng nān tē tē yorwa, dā kī, sim jū chēn, dāng bō, sēt jī tōp nē kō kāndā chī kato, sēt jī tōp jē lā kō kāndā chā sō. dā jī sāma, ane, kō xē dāng yorwa mā rō, dā ngē hā kō sōng sī dō sī. 그 미제 굳이 정게 단 데렌도서 세르다 응위다 돼서 아무로 치러마 유샤 고랑 나는 옆에 세르다 응위디 상마 치러를 요 미제 굳이 정게 니조레도스다 나다다 보다 기본 명게 니조레도스 다 들리지게 요아래
So generally, we always think that money is what's going to bring us happiness. You know, a lot of people think that, you know, if you have a lot of money, then you're going to be really happy. And if you don't have much money at all, then you're going to be, then you aren't going to be happy. And so we have a name for money, actually, in Tibetan. We have a nickname for money. We call it, says the source of all joys, or what brings all joys. And so, like, everyone likes money. Everyone likes this source of all joys, and they all try to gather it and collect it as much as they can. But actually, we need to look and we need to see, well, is money really the source of all our joys? Is it the source of all our happiness? This is something we need to examine. We need to look at this and investigate. So, you know, once actually, in the past, you know, there was this rich person. And this rich person lived in this beautiful house, and next door to his house there was a beggar who stayed there. And the beggar didn't really have any house. He'd sort of made a little shack or something that he stayed in all the time. But every night, you know, the beggar would go back to his shack, and the beggar would sit there singing some sort of a song, you know, singing himself songs. And then the rich person would go back at night and he'd be counting his money. He'd be counting, how much profit did I get today? Now let's see, how much money have I got today? Now what can I do tomorrow to make some more profit? What profit do I have? And he's just had all these worries and all these difficulties. And he didn't have any thought. He just couldn't even begin to think about singing a song. He was so busy doing all his accounting that he had no chance of singing. But you need to always think about it, and he'd hear this beggar outside, and the beggar was always singing these songs, and he'd say, geez, you know, what is this? You know, I've got all this wealth, you know, and here's this beggar outside, he's got nothing, so why is he singing? Why is it that he sings every night? And so he's thinking about this. What is the reason this beggar can be so happy? And then one day he thought, I think I know what it might be. And so one day when the beggar had gone out to look for a bit of food and something to drink, the rich guy snuck out and he put this big bar of gold in the beggar's house. He just left it there. And then he went back inside. And so then the beggar had been out, he got his, he came back, he had his food and his drink, and he came back to his house, and he got there and he thought, wait a minute, what's this bar of gold doing here? Why is there this gold here? Where did this come from? Maybe someone left it here. Maybe I have to look for someone to give it back to. Do I have to find someone? What do I have to do with it? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe this is like the blessings of the 3 jewels, and maybe it's the blessings of the 3 jewels, and maybe I should sell it and do something with the money that I get from it. Like, what can I do with it? And so the beggar spent the whole night thinking, well, what am I going to do with the gold? And he spent so much time sitting there thinking about what am I going to do with this gold that he forgot to sing a song that evening. And so this rich guy was in his house, and he was looking out the window, and as he looked out the window, he said, no, what is he doing? Okay, now I understand. Now I understand what the source of all my problems is. I understand where all my problems, I understand what is not letting me be happy. And so he gave all his gold and silver away, and threw it all away, and then he was happier.
Today in Lusane, when I said that I was missing on level, young the song, needs you most on the other. Or that thing in the Chicasway. That Chunjuga gives you my that chamber charts at Lusane, and the Kimzar single one, Kimzar Lusane, and Sandaya watch Majon Jay, and Sanda Jasamurji, and that is Jasamurji or and the auntie Puguji and the auntie Labdatan just Mistayare. And Dana she Lega Zavina and Lega Yamurata just more just a Mizidi just in Bunyon of Shichi, which is Sona on the Orba. Mizidi, Mrs. Adam Nimbo Meavam, Yanaji just Bruti. When it's Mizzy Koran just Mumba, Mizzy just with an Azupa just in Suesha. Delivered son out. When I turn a Chavina, Mrs. Ade, they love it, the devotees carry. Papa to Digis Adia, they should keep us Adia, they love the devotees. When I said that they love the devotees, and Mrs. Gibayachi. Today you stand on Digis Ad and Donna, Chiru Gumabachima, so Simgulia. 딱 한다 이제 상봉 개왕 유연대 답변은 초시에 버려. 드리지 초시에 버지 여버디 초시에 너기 초이스. 드린 주산에 디기사도 랑 심규기다. 개왕 상배 연den지려야다. 디기사마도 현 디기사지 치료 제 뇌야만스 치료 경험부터 소지 디기 가서고 주변에 차견에서 그래 가서 튕기는 사람들마다 디기 뭐마데 테마스 디기 뭐마데 낭심이냐마도 치료니냐 요만스 많은 게 주변에 신경挺忙需사래 아주 신다 파샤는 아주 더지 소소네 우단 예vấn đề 之前呢 amazing 什么的我这全部记得告诉特别电话的时间嘛到你没这个告诉这我自己你这特地钱呢说过也那我是说推还没不去啊就是物的没去当地好的当然是特别是上当面呢让给俺给哦他人多啊 안 다나시 지 소소 기본레도 아 서서로지 근데 이게 신의 지 소소소 간데 이메지 뭐셔야 돼요 그래서 용으로 봐 이제 사단 도나지 디기사데 도나 낭 심기 개왕 상배연 된지를 디기사 이제래 제일 루사는 미상보지 근데 잡죠 그래서나 조디 아니 정규 심규리야 개왕 상부의 연대인데 좀 지 공부에 당치 아니 미지 상부 미지 답되고 지단 거는 다 삼사라서 지 치료기 outside world 니주 칸에 차대 유비냐 수수르니 아니 가르쳐 삼로 고양한다 아니 지 삼로 가서 파양뭐 다나시 지 답되고 되지 토하네 로도 중에 미나 아니 왜 디기사 용거랬어 나 시마도 디기사데 전에 치료 용어버지기 말이야 시에네 대 토박 전에 제거는 다 깔아 가보시라래 아주 미종네 다다 봐도 디기 토박 된다리야 지금 베나 마 멍주자데서 지 디기 전에 제 시디 라왕 전에 자도 마 개비서도 마 달로 동상만 비지는 마 경경 gem니 대브레 담아데 마드사데 디기 마종을 동에 쳐르치면 다나시 하자 아주 벤조 야게 땅니 다 디기 전에 시가래 다 이네 대 벤조 야게 할 때는 아주 동에 쳐르치 에 아주 지 프레셔 뉴슈 마르치 린스 디기 전에네 바제바제 아주 지 다 도나 소소에다就是的让王的垃圾，这个的那当你把它用这个，这里就是咱，这买不到，这上头就当过开始米子嘞，他这起码都干米都大，这个这。
So when we think about it, it's like this human life of ours. It seems to us like it's a really big problem, like it's just all these difficult situations. We don't even think about the difficulties when we're young. Even after we after we grow up, when we're adults, we think, oh, we need to have a good home, a good household. And what can we do in all the difficulties in making a good home for ourselves? Then after you have children, then you have children, you have to send them to school, and there are a lot of difficulties and problems about that as well. When we have work, if your job is not good, then there are difficulties and problems there. And so sometimes it really seems to us as if our human life is something that is just all these difficulties. It's all these problems. Like there's no point to the human life. It's just all of these difficulties and problems. And so in this way, the human life, but actually when we think about it, human life, it's not actually something that needs to be so difficult. Human life doesn't need to be so problematic. Actually, it's we who are making life difficult for ourselves. We're making the problems ourselves. Actually, human life, when you think about it, is really something very easy, especially bringing ourselves happiness. Happiness is really very simple. It's very easy. And so, in this way, bringing ourselves a good human life, a happy human life, it's not something that we don't have to order it from someplace outside. We don't have to do that. Actually, we just have to look at our own selves and the virtue that we have in our mind, the goodness that we have in our minds, and the qualities we have in our own minds. It's like we have these, if we can just be contented with what we have. As it is said, contentedness is the best of wealth. And so happiness is just something, it's just having virtue, it's having goodness and within our own mind self. But generally we think that happiness comes from elsewhere, it comes from outside of ourselves, and we try to get it from other things. But if it's a question where we have to assemble all these conditions and circumstances outside of ourselves to bring us happiness, how much happiness can we really have? It's not like that. Actually, happiness is something that has to come from within ourselves. This is something I've said often before. I've said this many times before, but just the air that we breathe, the air that we breathe to keep ourselves alive, even that is something that is just completely amazing. It's so wonderful. When you think about all of the oxygen and everything that we breathe, in the air that we breathe, it's just amazing that it could happen. And you just breathe in and think, okay, this is happiness. This is what it is as you breathe it in. Really, if you think that you have to do something to create it and put it all together, there's no way you could possibly assemble everything that you need to make the air that you breathe. And so just breathing and remembering this, that itself really is happiness. And when we think in that way, then we appreciate what it is that we have. And so just thinking about the happiness, thinking about the virtue and the goodness within ourselves, that is what we need. So when we say being a good person, that's looking inside ourselves, seeing what goodness, what virtue do we have within ourselves? How can we develop that? And so when we think about it in this way, having a good human life, this is something that is really simple. It's not, when you think about the samsara and the outside world, that is very difficult. There are a lot of problems to it. But when we think about it, actually, if we ourselves can be expansive and open in this, then that's really what we need. That is what we really need to be in this life. That is what is going to bring us happiness in this life. And so, otherwise, if we think to ourselves that we're going to get happiness by clinging to and being attached to external things, then it's really going to be difficult to actually bring ourselves happiness in that way. And when it doesn't then happen that way, what is going to be like? So in order to bring ourselves happiness, then really we just need to look. We think that we need to be happy. We need to bring ourselves happiness, but what have we done to bring ourselves happiness? In all of the time since humans have appeared on this earth, we've done many things to bring ourselves happiness. And over thousands of years, what have we done? We have committed wars. We've gone to war. Why is it we've done that? To bring peace, to bring ourselves happiness? But instead of bringing happiness, it's not brought any happiness at all. It's only increased all of our suffering. We think that we need economic development and prosperity in order to bring ourselves happiness, but it hasn't done that. It's only brought us more suffering and more difficulty and more problems in our lives. And so it's like we have all lost our own freedom to this. And so really this is something that we need to examine. We need to really think about this very carefully. It is important to think about this carefully.
Denje ngonzare bando me bayin dewa chinje chave shingamde dane dene zebe gyurma dai jewa shinje paramai chebaru Teroi gene nande shado join dige tage Molai da bande Chojo sanje janse tamje ge men robar chinje lando Teya dai pensai je avan bodai nai Soin chonde jawai seje Oi zo nian zo lai je ye ran Da ge de sun ge sa bai Gun jo sum lai je bai bu Gyāvē tēmbān pē yurū jīn gē wā sīm jē guṇ lā ngō chū guṇ sāng jē tō yurū jīn jīn dū tē tā gēn gyū lāi mīn yurū jīn jīm yīn tāng nē tsō dzō tē Tsere ne me nyam do ben tsedre sa jo ne gyuro chi nan jen ze ben gyuro ma dai de wa chen do ye gyuro chi je ne be me ka je de le den de la san ye sho Chanjoy domne jizin doi chuben chowa tembarai joy soy nai de ye tan jin se bai ni to ne nye be cha che pa lan chun ba ye se ben so le zhuo wan zhuo wan yu